launching. And I'm wondering if it was because the title was maybe like in quotes. Sometimes I wonder if those things really matter. So, anyway. Hello, everyone. There's no one here yet. So, this is for people, if you are viewing this, if you go to the live tab and you click on this and view my past live streams, then cool. You're awesome. I see you. I see you. It shows that there's no one in here yet on the actual live. But for those people who might view the live stream after it's been posted, y'all are awesome. I appreciate all of you. Oh, there's someone in here because they're sending hearts. Hello, good morning. How's everyone doing? How's everyone doing? Sorry, I just had to relaunch because it was just really doing something weird and it kind of makes me nervous. So, Akicha, good morning. Hello. Hello. We're going to be getting into the funny surprise later on in the live stream. We're going to be talking about, we're going to continue talking about the things that we've been mentioning with Jose Herosio, Juan Carlos Lopez Gomez. We're going to be talking about all the different cases specifically around, Genzi Machado, Bashir Atala, all these people who are in this find out stage, but we're really going to drive home the idea of how the Trump administration is just violating people's due process, going through, and it's a really scary time, but we're also going to be revealing something a little bit more lighthearted and funny later on, because it ties into Homeland Security. So I appreciate every single one of you. Please make sure to send some likes. I love all of you so much, even if you don't like me. Even if you don't like me, I believe in spreading love, peace, and understanding. So, is everything good on the back end, y'all? Because it looks like it's really slow to pick up for me, and I don't know why. I don't know why that is. Is there something that, is it glitching at all? Or is the quality not good? Just let me know. Anyway, all right. So I'm going to start out with Jose Herosio. Jose Herosio is a 19-year-old who was detained by Border Patrol, and he's a U.S. citizen. He's a U.S. citizen. And this case is really, it really just shows the absolute corruption of Homeland Security here. It glitched for a second, but it's fine now. Okay. Okay. Seems okay for me. Perfect. All right. So we're going to be talking more about as an update of Jose Herosio. We're going to be talking again about all the different cases of, Genzi Machado, Bashir Atala. But there's also some other people who I just wanted to talk about, specifically getting these letters telling them to self-deport, yet they are United States citizens. So we're going to be breaking all of that down. I have a funny surprise for you all later on. If you are my mods, you know what it is. I'm not going to share that image that I shared in our group chat because I kind of scared myself into how well I could do that. So I'm like, yeah, no. But we have an interesting twist coming up, and it relates to Homeland Security. It relates to everything happening with this administration. But or maybe I should just put it out there first. You want to know who's leading Homeland Security Administration? Her name is Kristi Noem. You all know who Kristi Noem is? She's the governor of South Dakota. And Kristi Noem was that person that was holding Trump's hand on the stage while he was having his little dance party at it was a rally of some, or it was a town hall, and it turned into a dance party where he just stood on the stage and danced. To my mods in here, should I just go ahead and reveal the funny thing, or should I wait? Should I wait? Because it really shows the absurdity of America right now, that Kristi Noem is leading Homeland Security, and she's done some really wild things, but also it doesn't underscore or get rid of the absolute cruelty that Homeland Security and this administration has for people who, I guess, are Hispanic, who are even U.S. citizens. And we're going to be talking about this serious topic of like racial profiling, criminal profiling, and the rights of Americans. But we're also going to talk about the idea of not looking American enough, because that is a whole thing. So I appreciate every single one of you. Should I just go ahead and get to the funny part and then we can kind of proceed onward? I might circle back to it. You want to know who's leading Homeland Security? I'll show you who's leading Homeland Security. It's a lady named Kristi Noem. Do you all know who Kristi Noem? She's the person that that in her book talked about killing her dog. Yeah. Go for it. Okay. So, the person who is the Secretary of Homeland Security, her name is Kristi Noem. It's this lady right here, okay? She leads Homeland Security. She's also been known to be very, very hostile towards any sort of undocumented immigrants, but then also Homeland Security is literally going through and racially profiling people, even who are U.S. citizens, and like trying to arrest and put them in handcuffs, even if they are U.S. citizens. They look Hispanic, so they must be undocumented. We're going to get to those stories later on. But Kristi Noem was the governor of South Dakota before she was appointed to Homeland Security as the secretary. And she recently, back in 2019, created this ad campaign for trying to tackle the very serious problem of meth. Yes, you heard me right. So, there was this ad campaign that Kristi Noem was the leader of. Spent $500,000 on this ad campaign in order to, I guess, tackle meth use, which is a very serious problem. And the whole ad campaign was meth. We're on it. I'm like, I I had not heard about this until I started doing I started doing a lot more research into these stories of like Jose Herosio and all of these different U.S. citizens who have been racially profiled for deportations when they're U.S. citizens. And it got me into researching more about Kristi Noem, and I saw this, and I'm like, wow. The governor of South Dakota wanted to, I guess, tackle methamphetamine use, which is a noble goal. That is obviously something that's a big problem. And creates this ad campaign, spends $500,000. You're worried about $500,000, really? Yeah. Yes, I'm worried about $500,000. You want to talk about that kind of like interesting spending or wanting to talk about that? That's something. But like also, it's not even just about that. It's about the ad campaign itself. Also, honey, the fact that you are literally trying to basically grasp at straws, being like, why are you so angry at this? Your whataboutism is completely invalid. Just listen. So, we're on it. Just think for a second if this was a Democratic governor. Just think for a second. I was thinking about trying to do this thing where I put up a headline and it ended up being like I thought about trying to create a graphic that was literally an image showing a Democratic governor doing this, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. You're right. I don't want to do that. But just think for a second if it was like Jared Polis, the governor of Colorado, comes up with an ad campaign to address methamphetamine use in his state. Okay? And Jared Polis is a Democrat, okay? Pretend a Democratic governor came up with this slogan. Oh my God, MAGA would be all over it, saying that it's dumb, that it's woke, this is what you get with DEI. They would be saying all that kind of crap. But then it's them, and it's like, Oh, it's genius. Oh, it's amazing. Oh, it's a fantastic slogan. So let me just get to it. This is the current Secretary of Homeland Security came up with this ad campaign. Her name is Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem. And let me just show you some of the graphics from the campaign. This poor man. The idea of the campaign is to tackle drug use, but like it also looks like it's like endorsing drug use, which is just I'm just looking at this and I'm just shaking my head. So like this was used. This is taxpayer money in South Dakota was used for this ad. Back in 2019. And the person who came up with this ad is leading Homeland Security. The person who came up with this ad is leading Homeland Security. Now, I think the idea behind it was to be tongue-in-cheek with it in order to bring up and bring results. But like, were there no people that were in the editing room just looking at this being like, you know, maybe that's not so much a good idea. Sponsored by South Dakota. No, it's real. It is very much real. And I bring all of this up because I just think if it was a Democrat. Just think if it was a Democrat. The right wing would go nuts. They'd go nuts. And see, this is where it comes into it. Where it doesn't matter about the consistency. They'll just flip on a dime if it benefits them. Whereas typically Democrats, despite all their flaws, tend to have an ideology. Or like a consistent set of beliefs. Let me just say, if this was a Democratic governor, I live in North Carolina. Okay, the new governor of North Carolina is a Democrat. His name is Josh Stein. I actually met Josh Stein personally. I didn't really talk with him too much, but if this was the ad campaign for the Democrat governor of my state, I would be like, dude, you need to change that, okay? That's not a good idea. Not a good idea. This is not not what you're trying to communicate. But what's so interesting is that Kristi Noem was trying to market this as a grand success. Now, I was looking into statistics on whether this actually achieved decreases in drug use. This actually saved people's lives. I couldn't find explicit evidence to show that that was the case. But it also didn't show that it was not successful. So I'm going to put that out there. But this is the kind of person that's leading Homeland Security. The person who comes up with this. Someone just like screams gay in the chat. Yes, I am. Do you feel masculine, dude? Do you feel like you just owned me? Oh, and now you're gonna spam it. Oh, like I didn't see it the first time. Are you expecting to like make me upset? You're just stating a fact. But you're probably attempting to do it as an insult. Sweetheart, minding your own business is free. Minding your own business is free. Like, just go do something better with your time. Just ignore it. Oh yeah, I know. But I also like seeing y'all's comments about this. So, most of those accounts are bots. Oh, 100%. But just putting it out there for those people who do not know, the current Secretary of Homeland Security is this kind of person that comes up with this slogan. And I just want to read some of the comments here. $450,000. It was more around like 500, but to market a $1.7 million program. Checks government calculus. Sounds about right. This is the funniest thing I've seen all week. Most brilliant campaign this year feeds on the egos of people that think they made a mistake. It's gone extremely viral using the mockery vector. The slogan is both an admission of the problem and that it's working, that they're working on. Genius. I understand if you want to be tongue-in-cheek with the idea of this slogan as an ability to generate conversation, sure. But generating conversation doesn't actually do anything. Bringing awareness to something is good, but it doesn't mean that the problem is solved. It doesn't mean that like results were achieved. So if you just bring awareness to like sexual health or HIV, or you bring awareness to gun violence, but yet you don't really do anything other than bring the awareness to it, then it's kind of just like washing over the severity of it. And you just say, oh, look, we stimulated conversations. That's progress. How about results? Now, conversations and shifting rhetoric, that all can be important. But like, you can't just do that. You can't just have something go viral and think that somehow you've solved the problem. Yet that's what Kristi Noem, that's what the governor of South Dakota was saying. She's like, oh, look, it's creating conversation. It's creating conversation. It's like, okay, but did it lead to a decrease in methamphetamine deaths? Did it actually give help to people who need it? Did it actually achieve anything that you were hoping to do? Anyway, the reason why this is relevant, this happened back in 2019. The reason why this is relevant today is because this is the person that's leading Homeland Security. This is the person that is leading the Department of Homeland Security. And we're going to be talking more about that here in a minute. I appreciate every single one of you. Let me just keep reading some of these comments here. That pic is going to be a meme so fast. I legit feel so bad for the old dude in it. Yeah, he's talking about this old dude. I'm just seeing this, and it's like, yeah, dude, you know what? I guess you are. Like, you know what? I was thinking it, but you're the one saying it. I just, and so, let's see. It's like, also, what happened to their old slogan? Cocaine, who knows? Who knows? Just think for a second if this was a Democrat that came up with this. This would be fodder for the right-wing media for weeks. Oh, they would be going nuts, talking about how DEI and woke this and LGBTQ and trans people and all creating this kind of crap. You know that I'm right. They'd be doing that nonstop. If this was to all the right-wing sort of MAGA people that are trying to like scream gay in the chat thinking that's somehow an own, I guarantee that if this was a Democrat that did it, you would be making excessive fun at it. Be like, oh, that's so dumb, that's so silly, blah, blah, blah. Your side does it and you're like, oh yeah, it's the best thing ever. It's a fantastic idea. How about you actually have a standard, a set of morals, a set of beliefs, an ideology where you actually believe in something. Don't just fill the void with whatever opportunism is going to come along. And see, that's always what I point out on my live streams every single day, is how if you're going to just be a cog in the machine for any sort of political party, doesn't matter if you're MAGA or doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, doesn't matter. Stand on an ideology. But yet MAGA physically just cannot do that. They can't do that because the thing that they're standing on is literally shifting sands known as Donald Trump. So it's fascinating to me if this were to just put the shoe on the other foot. Fascinating to me if it were to be the other way around. And that's where I get into it, and I've said this so many times on my live streams. Politics today is so much of this like heads I win, tails you lose. Where for Democrats, they're always going to be in the losing side of it because Republicans just try to do that to them. I'll give you an example. The reason I say heads I win, tails you lose is deliberate. And It comes from actually a Scooby-Doo cartoon where Shaggy at one point was like, "Here, Scoob, go and check it out. Okay, we'll flip a coin. Heads I win, tails you lose." It's also like, it's like trying to play Monopoly with a 4-year-old that changes the rules every single time. Every single time. MAGA will change whatever they think is going to benefit them. And I've shared this. This is a personal anecdote, and then I'll get back into some of the news here. This is a personal anecdote that I shared when I was in college. I've shared it on my live stream several times. In one of my classes, no surprise, I was a political science major. I took a judicial decision-making class. One of my peers was a guy named Jacob. He was a Christian conservative guy, and I always like to chat with everyone. And we were talking about judicial decision-making and about how if something were to negatively affect him, he would go through the court of law to adjudicate it. And he's like, yeah, I would get everyone to really, really care about it. I'd make it the biggest stink. I would then cause absolute ruckus in order to fix my problem. And I'm like, oh yeah. He said, if I were to do that, would you support me in like my pursuit of justice? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And I said, okay, Jacob, if it were the other way around and I petitioned the court and I said that this thing was negatively affecting me, and would you stand up for me? He goes, oh, no. Absolutely no. And I looked at him and I'm like, what? What? He's like, yeah, no, I wouldn't do that. Why would I? And I'm like, okay, so you just got me to care about things that affect you, but then as soon as things negatively affect me, you're not going to care? He goes, that's right. And I looked at him, I said, what? He's like, yeah, I'm going to flip when it is convenient for me. And I looked at him and I'm like, that's not empathetic. And he goes, I don't care. If it benefits me, I'm going to change. And I was just stunned in that moment. And as someone who grew up in a Christian family, I was like, okay. I mean, I grew up in a very Christian conservative family, so it's kind of like, it's weird. And he was also from a Christian family. I said, doesn't that kind of go against, like, love thy neighbor? He goes, well, I believe in Jesus. I'm going to go to heaven. I don't need to be a good person. And I was like, oh my God, like, what? What? And it was really just fascinating how quickly he would just say, oh yeah, I don't care about the plight of your struggles, but I'm going to get you to care about the plight of my struggles. The reason why this all relates to politics here is because when I bring this up, this ad campaign from Kristi Noem, where Kristi Noem, a Republican governor, that comes up with this campaign, MAGA is going to look at this and be like, oh, that's the best slogan ever. It's doing its job. It's creating conversation. It's being amazing. It's really achieving, it's really doing its job. But then, if this were to be a Democrat, they would be like, that's woke, that's crazy, that's nonsense, that's because of the transgenderism, the Green New Deal liberalism. They don't have a standard. They don't have an ideology. They don't have a set of beliefs. They don't have morals. They flip on a dime when it is convenient. That's the behavior of, I believe, either like a psychopath or a sociopath. I'm not calling them that. I'm not a medical professional. But the opportunism, even if it shows the absolute biggest amount of hypocrisy, is what MAGA leans on. So the reason I bring this up is to show that, and also the fact that the person who came up with this slogan is the governor, was the governor of South Dakota, is now the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem. That lady. Yes, she is also known as the puppy dog killer. Yes. When I was doing my reconnaissance I've been diving a lot into specific cases around U.S. citizens who are being racially profiled and locked up, being suspected of being an illegal immigrant when they're a U.S. citizen, basically being racially profiled just because they are Hispanic, or maybe they speak Spanish, or they look like an illegal. We're going to be getting to those stories. I just discovered this upon Kristi Noem, and I was like, I have to share this. Is this anyone's first time viewing the live? I love all of you. I really do. Mods, is there anyone that... is there anything happening in the chat that I need to be aware of? Just text me. It is so crazy just seeing... Just seeing, like, that this was a thing. This is back in 2019, for those people who don't know. And... it just goes to show you, like, who is running the Secretary... Who is running Homeland Security? I'm not very eloquent today. I want to give an update, though, about the case of Jose Herosio. While we're talking about immigration, while we're talking about U.S. citizens being brutalized and racially profiled, I want to talk about the case of this guy. Have you all heard about his case yet? People are probably familiar with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. They might be familiar with Juan Carlos Lopez Gomez in Florida. But, like, I also want to point out this one. This really goes to show you how corrupt Homeland Security has become, because they can't get their story straight around this guy. Let me give you some context here. So, and I'm gonna have to scroll back here to yesterday's live stream with the information. So, I love all of you. Please make sure to send some likes. U.S. citizen was visiting Arizona, Tucson, Arizona, when he was snatched and detained by immigration agents for 10 days. Now, just to put it in context, this guy, Jose Herosio, he's a citizen. He's a U.S. citizen, 19 years old. He lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and he was traveling to Tucson, Arizona, to visit, I believe it was his girlfriend's family. He also has a kid, I believe, or the girl has a kid. I'm not quite sure. But the biggest thing about this story is that there's inconsistencies in the government's story. So, again, this connects back to Kristi Noem because she's the leader of Homeland Security. This is on her. If you're enjoying the live so far, please make sure to click that like button and click the subscribe button. I work really hard to bring you this content. So, the case of Jose Herosio is probably the most wild one that I've seen yet. And I talked about it yesterday. I'm going to be posting a video about it later today. Let's get into it. Herosio, who lives in Albuquerque, New Mexico, was detained near Nogales, Arizona on April 8th, according to court documents. They allege, and again, it's important to say, okay, well, who's saying it? The court documents. They're saying that he illegally entered the country from Mexico and was found without the proper immigration documents. According to the court, Herosio admitted to illegally entering the United States of America from Mexico on or about April 7th of 2025. Now, what's really interesting is you have the Department of Homeland Security by this lady, Tricia McLaughlin, who is a spokesperson for them, saying that actually, on April 8th, Herosio approached Border Patrol in Tucson, Arizona, stating that he had entered the U.S. illegally through Nogales, which is on the border, and they said that he wanted to turn himself in. Okay? Now, when you look at the official court documents of the case, I know it's fine print, but it says in here, that at or near Nogales, that he was discovered and picked up, and then there was a detention requested. Well, hold on. That's two different renditions. Which one is it? Herosio approached Border Patrol in Tucson, Arizona, and stated that he had entered the U.S. illegally. Approached them in Tucson. Then the court documents are saying that he was picked up at or near Nogales. Let me show you why this is really peculiar. Because Tucson, Arizona is right here. Nogales is right here. They're 70 miles. They're 70 miles apart. And if he's he's a U.S. citizen visiting from Albuquerque, New Mexico, going to Tucson, Arizona, I drew on here. This is the route that you would take. This is the route you would take. You don't go through Mexico to then go to Tucson. You go down here to La Cruces and cross over the state's border. And there's 70 miles between Tucson and Nogales. So what this is telling me is that Homeland Security is literally making stuff up. Making stuff up. Their court documents were showing that he was picked up at or near Nogales, which I will point out, Nogales is on the border here, has a section, has part of the city in Arizona, part of it is in Mexico. How can you make that big of a flaw? What this is telling me is that Homeland Security is lying in court documents under oath in order to detain people who are in fact U.S. citizens anyway. The racial profiling is the point, and that is what is so dangerous. So, going further into this case here, Hermosio's girlfriend's aunt eventually was like, oh my gosh, wait, he's been snatched up, he's been detained. We have to go get his social security card and birth certificate. He was traveling from his home in Albuquerque, New Mexico to Tucson to visit his girlfriend's family. Okay? And you're not going to carry your birth certificate or social security card on you. You're not going to do that. Like, you're just not going to do that. Now, I guess for any sort of U.S. citizen who is Hispanic, the government's going to assume that you're an undocumented person and pull you over. That's called racial profiling. That's like stop and frisk on steroids. Remember stop and frisk? They did that under a Democrat in New York City. And people said, yeah, that's racial profiling. That's awful. It was. We called it out. But this is literally racial profiling on steroids now. And the reason I'm giving an update about this case here is because you have the inconsistencies of court documents and the statements from Homeland Security. One saying that he approached Border Patrol in Tucson, Arizona. The other one says that he was picked up at or near Nogales. That's 70 miles apart. They cannot exist at the same time. And it was just this just dropped, his little interview that he gave about his experience. And I'm going to go through and read this. So, Albuquerque man talks about being wrongfully detained by Border Patrol, a U.S. citizen. A U.S. citizen. Just 19 years old, Jose Hermosillo was detained for multiple days in Tucson after not being able to provide his birth certificate to an officer. KOB4 just got the chance to talk with him about how he made it back, yada yada. What started as a family trip to Tucson, Arizona quickly turned into a nightmare. Quote, I was just walking around the city of Tucson. During that stroll, Hermosillo says that he was approached by an officer questioning his legal status. So you could just walk around Tucson, Arizona and immediately be asked about your legal status. That's where we are. That's where we are under this administration. Now, the officer said, where are you from? I said, New Mexico. The officer was like, can you show me a birth certificate? He's like, I don't have that ID with me. That's when Hermosillo eventually found himself handcuffed and charged with illegally entering the United States. So he was, because he didn't have a birth certificate, because he didn't have his social security card on him, they're like, you must have entered in illegally. We're going to handcuff you and throw you in jail. A U.S. citizen. Pause for a second and think if the shoe was on the other foot and this was under a Democratic administration. It'd be just as bad. This is racial profiling. If I were to be walking around Tucson, Arizona, no one's going to suspect me of being an undocumented person. I could be, sure. But at the same time, they're going after people who look Hispanic. Why? Because, oh, you must be undocumented. You look un-American. You aren't American enough. The racial profiling is the point. It's disgusting in this day and age. He didn't have an ID with him, so he was charged for entering the United States. He says, they're saying I'm from Mexico, but I'm a U.S. citizen. No matter how many times Herosio told Border Patrol agents he's a U.S. citizen, they did not believe him. Eventually, he found himself sitting in the Florence Correctional Center, cold, hungry, and terrified. Now, what I want to mention really quickly about the Florence Correctional Center here is, you know how in court documents they're saying that he was picked up at or near Nogales? Well, the Florence Correctional Center is even farther from the border where the court documents. So, like, you traveled 140 miles to go and put someone that you picked up here, put him in this detention center to then what? I guess deport them? Don't you think that there probably would be something a little bit closer? Now, I don't know that, but I'm just thinking critically here. And it should, like, you should have Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem should resign because of this. You're literally going through and racially profiling, detaining people, cuffing Americans, U.S. citizens, racially profiling them, locking them up, accusing them of entering the U.S. illegally. They couldn't even run. Like, here's the thing. It could also just be straight up incompetence. Did they not look through the system and look up his name and check, like, oh yeah, no, he's an American citizen? Like, don't they have the capacity to go and do that? It's insanity to me. And that's where it's like, okay, the targeting, the racial profiling is the point. I don't think that they're just incompetent. I think that they're actually just evil. They're trying to deport even knowing U.S. citizens who are Hispanic. Because, oh, they are not American enough. That's what's so scary these days. So, going back to the interview that I was talking about here, he didn't have an ID with him. Eventually, he found himself in Florence Correctional Center. They took me to Florence to jail, and in jail, it's cold in there. I got sick for one day, and because you're in jail, they don't treat you so well, and the food is cold. As Herosio began to lose hope, his family got to work. His girlfriend's aunt provided officials with Herosio's birth certificate and social security card. Finally, after 10 long days filled with uncertainty and despair, Herosio was released to go home to his family. Quote, I feel happy when I came home. My mom, she cried when she saw me. For Rebecca Schiff, senior staff lawyer at the ACLU in New Mexico, the most troubling thing is that this case is the inconsistency in the police reports being processed by Homeland Security. Homeland Security keeps changing their story according to what's been publicly reported. Why it took 10 days for the father of a young child to come home. And that's also something that's really important to point out. You have Homeland Security saying that he turned himself in Tucson, Arizona. Then you have court documents that were put forward by Homeland Security saying that he was picked up at or near Nogales, which is 70 miles south. It's one thing to make a mistake of like 20 miles, but 70 miles? That's a lot. That's a lot. So are you just incompetent or are you just cruel? Or are you both? They're not even trying to cover it up. And let me just read you some of the comments by people online, because they were pointing out this inconsistency, pretty easily. Then why did you charge him saying that it was found near Nogales if he approached in Tucson? And why are you sharing an English version of an interview the agent said was conducted in Spanish? If he was signing an English version of a Spanish interview, where's the Spanish signed one? Also, they had him sign under oath that he entered the U.S. illegally through Mexico. Let me show you what that contract looked like. That's the signature down at the bottom. Do you think that's a real signature? Do you think that's a real signature? Like, are we supposed to believe, like, oh, yep, that's it? Or that one? Or that one? Do you think that this is a real signature? What this shows is that the Department of Homeland Security is literally forging court documents to then deport U.S. citizens. I'm not joking. That's literally what this is showing. Sorry, my phone is getting hot. Hold on. My phone is getting really, really hot. And think about all the stories of people who are not U.S. citizens that are being treated this bad, being treated so awful. We're a country made up of immigrants. We're a country made up of immigrants. For us to treat them so bad is just absolutely abhorrent in my view. It's abhorrent. So I wanted to give an update about that story here. I haven't even been looking at the comments here. Is there anything I need to see? What's also really, really, really rich is that literally Homeland Security is trying to say that it's his fault. That all of this is his fault. And that's just peak gaslighting that I cannot stand. Wow, someone's like, you're saying lies. Go and check it out for yourself, dude. But don't go to whatever far right-wing news source you go to, like Fox. Don't go there. Don't do that. And also go and check out the videos themselves of him talking about his experience. Go and look at the original court documents. Then go and look at the statements of Homeland Security. How can I be lying when I'm literally showing you the evidence here? I'm showing you, this is the court document. Requesting, detention requested. It says that he was picked up at or near Nogales. Okay? At or near Nogales. Then, you have Homeland Security, the person saying, like, actually, he approached Border Patrol in Tucson, stated that he'd entered the U.S. illegally. They're 70 miles apart. They're 70 miles apart. If this was a Democrat trying to pull this, would you believe them? No. Because you change your mind when it's opportunistic for you. That's the makings of a madman. You don't have any sort of ideology other than opportunism. But also, think about opportunism. Whose opportunism are you acting upon? Are you acting upon things that are going to benefit you or your community, or the opportunism of a billionaire like Donald Trump to then, I guess, get his way, be cruel to other people? Someone said, your brain cells are 70 miles apart. Says the person who voted for Donald Trump, honey. Like, let me just give you an analogy of Donald Trump especially with his leadership, these tariffs, okay? Donald Trump says that he's going to burn down a house, okay? And then he makes a big show about how he's not burning down the house, but that he might burn down the house in 60 days. And then he decides, you know what? No, I'm not going to burn down the house. I'm going to save the house. Then he sets the house on fire. And then he's like, oh no, the house is burning. And then calls the fire department to then extinguish the fire of the house. And then holds a press conference about how he saved the house. That is peak Donald Trump for you. That's literally what he did with the tariffs. As soon as he announced the tariffs, oh, this is amazing. And then all of a sudden he saves them and he pauses them. Art of the deal. So don't try to claim that when I use logic that you say that my brain is broken. It's really ironic. Literally. I know, right? Great analogy. 100%. 100%. That is so him. So what you should be asking yourself is, why is the Homeland Security giving one story and the court documents, which are put forward by Homeland Security, giving another story? they're not even trying to like do this cover. They're not even trying to do this cover up with intelligence. Like, it's and when you and like if you're gonna try to do that, you got to be smart about it. So Homeland Security is lying about how they've apprehended people and not even coming up with good lies. Exactly. Anyway, I need to skedaddle. I also appreciate every single one of you in here, even if you don't like me. It's so funny that there's so many people that make me into your enemy. I'm not your enemy, dude. I'm just trying to inform you. Think if this was you. I'm going to assume that most everyone in here is a U.S. citizen. Actually, no, I'm not done with the live because I need to talk about something that's really important. Let me talk about something that's really, really important. This case with Jose Herosio is a perfect example of racial profiling. The racial profiling is the point. Why was the facts of the case for Jose Herosio is he was literally visiting, he's a U.S. citizen, he's visiting from his home in Albuquerque, New Mexico, goes to visit his girlfriend's family in Tucson, Arizona, and is just snatched off the street. The officer pulls him aside and says, where are you from here? Did you, just questioning his legal status. He goes, I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm from New Mexico. Sure you are. Do you have a birth certificate? Do you have a social security card on you? He goes, no. Handcuffed, walked away. Why was he approached in the first place? Why was he approached in the first place? It's the racial profiling. That's the point. What about Bashir Tala? U.S. citizen of 10 years, lawyer, lives in New Hampshire, goes to Canada for a spring break trip just over the weekend, crosses back into the United States, and he's pulled aside and questioned about his legal status. He's like, I'm a U.S. citizen. And he's like, oh yeah, sure you are. Yeah, I'll show you my documents here. Oh yeah, you will? Yeah, I will. They basically treat him like a criminal. Those are his own words. What about Genzi Machado? He's a construction worker, lives in Virginia, U.S. citizen, voted for Trump. And he goes to work one day, and then he's pulled over by people who were looking for someone else, supposedly. They decide to, he says, I'm a U.S. citizen, and he's like, get out of the car. Gets out of the car, close the windows, turn off the car. All of that. I'll show you my ID. I'm a U.S. citizen. He goes, oh yeah, sure. You believe this guy? It's literally how the interaction went. Go and check out my past videos. And then he's like, let me just show you my ID. I'm a U.S. citizen. And then all of a sudden they get the ID and they're like, oh crap, take the handcuffs off. He's a U.S. citizen. He's fine. The racial profiling and the brutality is the point. For anyone who remembers Stop and Frisk in New York. This was a thing led by Democrats where they were trying to crack down on crime, the tough on crime approach. Stop and Frisk was giving police officers more autonomy to follow whatever suspicious figures, whatever people that they deemed were likely people to do crime. Well, what did that do? Because there's racial profiling, they started thinking that people of color were they were targeted for being disproportionately looking more criminal. Let me tell you something. I love my parents, but they also taught me some kind of flawed things when I was younger. They told me that in a roundabout way, but then eventually later on kind of explicitly, they said that all black people are inherently more violent. That's something that, I don't know if they even remember saying it to me, but that's something that I believe my father mentioned to me. They also mentioned to me that all gay people are PEDOS. and that all environmentalists or people that want to save the environment or be good stewards of our planet are all hippies that live on the street. That stereotyping is very real. Let me give you some other examples. Law enforcement officials assume that someone who's more likely to have committed a crime just because they're African American or a person of color. Or school personnel that treats Latino child's behavior as an infraction under its zero tolerance policy, while then the same action being done by a white kid is seen as like, oh, that's normal kids play. Or a private security guard following a shopper because she believes the shopper is more likely to steal from the store. Particularly just because they look like, oh, well, they look sketchy. They might. And now, granted, there is some profiling that is legal, but disproportionately racial profiling is awful. Or, an employer wants a stricter security clearance for Muslim employee after September 11th. Or a criminal justice system official refuses bail to a Latin American person because of a belief that people from her country are violent. Or a landlord asks a Chinese student to move out because she believes the tenant will expose her to SARS, which is some sort of disease. We also saw a lot of anti-Asian hysteria around COVID. That racial profiling is very serious. Very serious. And you're like, well, Scott, why do you care? You're white. So? And? What? You expect me to be like, well, doesn't affect me, I'm not going to care. What? So, the people who constantly try, and this is the thing, people who constantly say, like, love your neighbor as yourself, you know, like, these, like, conservative Christians are saying, well, why do you care? Doesn't affect you. My question is, how can you be a Christian and then literally be the absolute opposite of what Jesus teaches? Love thy neighbor as thyself. Seek to be last, not first. Jesus was an undocumented immigrant. He was an undocumented immigrant. He was a brown guy that went around preaching gospels, and people, he was crucified. Happy belated Easter to everyone, because he was going around and spreading the word, and he was still crucified under Pontius Pilate at the throes of Caesar. All of that stuff. How is it that you literally are supposed to be Christian and literally are the most opposite? Your political beliefs literally endorse everything that Christianity says is evil. The living embodiment, like God is shaking his head at you. Someone says, SMH, you wrong. You know that I'm right, but your stubbornness is not going to let you admit it. Here's the thing. There are so many people that come into these lives and they just scream at the top of their lungs, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Okay, show me the evidence of where you're correct. There is none. There is none. Tell me, do you think that Jesus would be screaming from the top, oh, protect the children, not from the criminals, not from the people who want to do danger with gun violence, no, from the gay people. It's funny how Jesus says, love thy neighbor, welcome the stranger, be a good Samaritan. Jesus is really looking right at the right-wing Christianity that's been absolutely hijacked for power by the far right. And he's just shaking his head at them, being like, you think you're going to get in? You think you're going to get into heaven? No. And I'm still not quite sure where I am with my religious journey. But the reason I bring all of that up is like the racial profiling is very, very serious, and it happens quite often. But also, the people who profess to be the most moral through Christianity are often literally the absolute opposite. It's the living embodiment of hypocrisy. It's okay to admit that you were wrong about something. Let me tell you something. I used to be MAGA. I was raised a conservative Christian, soon to be altar boy. You don't have to double down on ignorance because your stubbornness says that you can't change your mind. Actually, it shows that you literally are a super strong person if you admit, you know what, I was duped. I was a victim of MAGA. Truly I was. I was told all of these things. They activated my fear complex about trans people that just wanted to just live their lives without, people trying to constantly fearmonger about them. To people who are MAGA, it's okay to admit that you were sucked in to this hateful cabal. It's okay to admit, you're like, you know what? If you're looking for an out, you don't have to constantly pull muscles with the amount of stretching you got to do to justify Donald Trump's behavior about him being a moral person and doing his immoral actions. You can literally just decide to be like, you know what? I was wrong. I was wrong. I don't have to double down on stubbornness. Just because you made a mistake in the past doesn't mean that you have to be the living embodiment of stubbornness. Strength is showing your faults. Exactly. I'll give you an example of one time that I was wrong about something. At one point, I was talking about gun violence. I've said this so many times, but for those people who don't know, I was talking about gun violence, and I thought that AR-15 meant assault rifle 15. No. The A part stands for Armalite. And it was someone that was in the chat that brought that up to me. And I'm like, oh, really? Is that true? And I literally went through and I'm like, you know what? It is. Okay. When I'm wrong about something, I'll admit it. Because you need to... it's not about me. It's not about my feelings. It's about the truth. It's about the information. If I'm incorrect about something, factually speaking, then I call on people to correct me about it. Opinions are different. That's just your viewpoint, your interpretation. Those are up for debate. But objective, factual things, yeah. I expect you all to correct me on something. So, it's okay if you want to change your mind and realize, oh crap, yeah, Donald Trump is a living embodiment of hypocrisy on steroids. Yeah. It's okay to admit that you were sucked into it. It doesn't make you a weak person to admit, yeah, I bought into it. Someone said the gay lisp is strong. And it's okay to stop constantly spamming negative things trying to make fun of me for my sexuality. It doesn't mean that you accepting gay people doesn't mean that you are, in fact, a soft beta male. It actually shows that you are secure enough in your masculinity or secure enough in your identity to not be threatened or lash out or try to make fun of someone else who's just different from you existing, which bothers you. The most masculine men are the straight men who have gay friends. Because they are not afraid. They're not afraid when people try to call them gay as an insult. They're like, I'm not. But let me tell you, my friend is. He's cool. Those are the real men. They have way more balls than anyone. Those are the real, gosh, I forget. Club Q. There was a shooting at Club Q in Colorado Springs. Was a shooting at a gay nightclub. One of the people who stood in the way in order to protect people who were there was a straight guy who was a veteran in the military. He literally shielded people and apprehended the shooter. That's what real masculinity looks like. That's what real masculinity is. It's not the rage typing and trying to call someone gay in the chat. You simply cannot have a country without borders. What does that have to do with any of what we were just talking about? As soon, it's so funny, y'all, that's called whataboutism. As soon as we talk about something, all of a sudden it's, what about this? What about this? What about this? What Democrat ever said that we shouldn't have a country without borders? None. They have to make something up in order to maintain how they're already feeling. Anyway, I appreciate every single one of you. I wanted to just talk about that racial profiling because that's really, really important. You have the Department of Homeland Security literally going through and being like, you don't look American enough. You don't look American enough. You don't belong here. the white supremacists have taken over the Republican Party. It's so sad to see it, because white supremacy should never take over anything. But Homeland Security under Kristi Noem, who has those amazing ideas like South Dakota's slogan, it really shows that this is where we are in America. You have this kind of crap going on. And it's just so sad to see the racial profiling. It's sad. And just because it might not affect you doesn't mean that you shouldn't care. Because as soon as something does affect you, all the other people are going to be so marginalized already. They're going to be like, well, why didn't you speak out when it was me? And that's the thing. What scares me in this country is people's numbness to injustice. That's what scares me, is when people literally say, well, I don't care because it doesn't affect me. That's literally the opposite. That's the opposite. If you're a Christian, that's literally the opposite of what Christ teaches. He says, do good on earth and spread the good word. If Jesus were alive today, Donald Trump would deport him. Someone said, no one cares. I love that. I love that as soon as I bring up those kinds of things. So anyway, I need to skedaddle. I love all of you, even if you don't like me, because, I need to get to work. I have some really, really exciting stuff planned. I'm also planning on debuting and releasing another video today. Y'all are awesome. If you have not subscribed yet, please make sure to do so. Did anyone become a member of the channel today? Kentisa, I love you. Someone said, stop focusing on the negative. Stop focusing on the negative. Is negative when someone is a victim of racial profiling leading to their imprisonment as a U.S. citizen based on the color of their skin. You're saying don't focus on something like that? Girl. Sorry, I'm going to focus on it. Gaslighting is a sin. Well, you know what? Harassment and bullying is a sin. Yet you don't seem to have a problem with that. So, Jesus would follow the law. Jesus would follow the law of God, not the laws that we construct here on earth. Anyway, I love all of you. It's so funny. And for everyone who tries to make fun of me, I don't hate you. I think that you're someone who is really, really desperate, and you're just looking for an outlet to express your anger, and you just decide to look at a cute little gay guy like me and think that it's a perfect vessel for it. I'm numb to it. The reason I read some of those comments is I find it funny. I want you to seek the help that you deserve. I don't hate you, so why do you hate me? I'm not your enemy. So, anyway, I love all of you so much. I'm gonna skedaddle. You think you're cute? Yeah, I do think I'm cute. I do. It's called confidence. I hope you have some. Anyway, I love all of you. I'm gonna skedaddle. Shout out to my amazing moderators. Y'all are awesome. Cherie, you're awesome. Akicha, Ellie, Jenny, Kate. I couldn't do anything without you all. Elisa, God, I love you. Yeah, y'all are incredible. Ginger Monster, love you. Ginger Monster, love you. Kantisa, love you. I'm gonna be coming out with some members only content here soon. So, I love all of you so much. Just remember that you are beautiful, that you are loved, that you are valid, you are strong, and you are fierce. Don't let anyone or anything ever dim your shine. I love all of you so much. Bye!